Hello everyone and welcome to this day 3 session for the React.js preparation. So in this particular session we'll be learning about states and lifecycle methods in React.js. Okay, so before even going into this day 3 session, I'd just like to point out the day 2's lessons. Like in day 2 we have learned about JSX and other like props, components, etc. about React, and we have done an assignment of this, right, where this logo will be there, input button will be there, and two buttons will be there inside a parent component. I hope you guys have done this component because then only your understanding of props and the component hierarchy will be clear, which that knowledge will be very much required in the upcoming sessions. Okay, so that's how so in this one, right, so let us first know about state. So in React.js, right, as I have already told you, there is something called props. So props are used to send data throughout components, and there is something called state. So in order to create something which will make the UI re-render, basically whenever there is a change, it will re-render the UI in order to reflect the changes in the data. So to do this kind of stuff, we need something called state. Okay, so let's just quickly see an example of state. So I'll just go to my terminal and I'll just start the application. Okay, okay, it is saying something. So as I have yesterday removed the browser and all those things, so that's why it is coming. So I have just reloaded it. So now it is coming. Okay, so now the component that we had created is remaining same, like this. So we had a class component and a heading and a functional component, and then inside current component we were keeping everything. Okay, so now what we will do is quickly first, so in a single file only we have written 1 2 3 components, but in usually it is not done like that. Rather we keep the code in a reusable files. Okay, so what we will do is we'll create a file in here. So this is how we create basically components in React.js. So the syntax is like that, but the way we organize them is like this. So I create a new file saying heading component .js. Okay, and I'll just copy this particular code, heading component. Okay, so I'll just paste it here and let me name it heading component functional. This is a functional component, and I'll just export it. Export heading component, that's all. Export default heading component. So this is a syntax of ES6, where you need to, if you are returning only one item, then you have to put it as export default. Now what happens is whenever we import this particular file, then we will be having this component with us. Okay, I'll just, so there is a good practice is that the name of the component and the file name should be same. Okay, and in React it is like camel casing, and the first letter will be uppercase only. Okay, so I go here, and right now you see here one error is coming because this particular component is not defined here. So what I'll do is I'll just import that component from like that. Okay, so I'll just put JS heading component functional, and that here also name I'll change like that. Okay, so let's see now. See here I'll just change the console also, sorry, the name also here, heading component, like that I'll put, and inside that the props will come. Okay, so heading component functional hello from component, like that it is coming. And we'll just segregate this class component as well. So I'll copy the name, I'll create a file, and I will just cut this component and paste it here, and similarly I'll just export default this guy I have done. Okay, and see here one error is coming like react.component. So whenever you are defining any class component, you need to import the react package. So I'll just quickly import react package. Okay, and that I have imported. Now error is gone. So this one thing you need to remember, that whenever you are defining any class component, you need to import react package because you have to extend it from react.component. Otherwise in functional component there is no need of that. Okay, so I'll just copy this guy and I will import this component as well from heading component using class. Okay, so both these files are right now holding two components on their own. Okay, and this is how we'll be managing our components basically. And now let this thing be one component is there, and inside this set interval we are doing rendering. So for now I'll just remove this set interval as we do not require it right now. So I'll just remove it, and rather it will be just like a simple rendering, one time rendering will happen. Okay, so I have done that. So it is stuck and it is done. Okay, now what we'll do is so in order to know states, right? So states can be used in class components. Okay, so now it comes like in class component we will learn about more advanced things. So previously, as you have seen, only in a class component we were using render method to render all the things, and this dot props will hold all the props, right? But there is another thing, that is the starting point of the class component, which is called constructor function. So constructor function, as the name suggests, it starts when this whole component initializes. So the first thing that happens in this component, whenever this component is used, that is the constructor. So constructor function runs. Okay, so what we'll do is, so in order to say for example, before even going to constructor, what we'll do is simple one variable I'll use here, const a equal to 2. Okay, so sorry, let me make it this one. Okay, a equal to 2, and what I'll do is inside constructor I'll set interval. No, I'll just create, so just like constructor, I'll just console log once, console.log hello flow from struct. Okay, now the thing is, just like constructor, we can we have render function and constructor function, as well as we can define custom functions as well. So I'll just define one custom function, which is like update variable value. Okay, so this function, what it will do is it will update the variable value in every like 2 seconds. So I'll set interval. Okay, and inside that what I'll do is basically, and every 2 seconds I'll just update whatever is there in a plus equal to 1, like that I'm doing. Okay, so a is a variable that I have stated in here, and inside set interval I'm just updating it. Okay, so here you see it is not being used right now. So what I'll do is, to use it, I'll just use it right here. Okay, so let me just redefine this thing a bit. So we can just wrap it around another div. So one important thing you need to remember is the React's JSX syntax when rendering, it should always return one element. Okay, so only one root element will be there. So everything should be enclosed within a div or whatever, like you can keep a section or article or div. Okay, so there cannot be multiple siblings to it, like in the div only another div if I write, so that kind of stuff won't happen. So because this becomes like this, and then there is no root, so that's why you have to enclose everything inside one particular element. Okay, so I have defined div as that, and I'll just give one line break. Okay, and after that I'll just give a paragraph, and inside paragraph I'll say like count value equal to, and I'll just print the value of a here. Okay, so what I'm trying to do in here is so as it is, let it be like that, and whatever was there, and along with that I am just enclosing everything inside a div, because JSX expression in React.js will always return only one element. So everything you do, it should be enclosed within one element, that is right now div. Okay, and I have defined one variable in here which is being updated every 2 seconds, and I'm just showing it in here in the UI. Now another thing is this particular method is defined which on calling which it will just set a set interval which every 2 seconds it will update the A's value. But the thing is, this particular method I am not calling, so I'll just call it in here. Okay, so one time calling means this thing will be updated. Okay, this thing will keep on doing it. Now one important thing is, whatever you want to access in class, right, so that accessing will happen through this. So whatever you keep inside class, that access will happen through this. Okay, so this will happen. Now the thing is, when you want to use this keyword inside constructor, right, so you have to always do one thing that is called super. So you need to always call a super method. Okay, so this particular method, what it does is basically it just runs the parent constructors first, right, and it defines the this keyword inside constructor. So inside constructor, this keyword is not there until you call super. Okay, so it is, this keyword will only be available when you call super method. Okay, also if you want to include something in this keyword, right, so then also you need to pass it in here. So say for example, you need to access the props in here, the props title, right, so then also you have to here you have to pass it like this. Okay, so super does that. Super basically defines the this keyword, and it defines all the data associated with this. Okay, so what I'm doing here, again constructor I have, inside that super I have defined, and after that I'm just doing a console log so that I know that console log is happening. Also after that I am calling this method once. So this method, what it does is it sets a set interval, and every 2 seconds it will increase A's value by 1. I'll just put a console log here as well, value A, like that. Okay, so this A value is getting updated every 2 seconds, and that A value I have printed over here. Okay, so now let's see what happens. So I just reload it. So see, even though I have defined the set interval thing, right, then also it is not working out here. So set interval is working, but it is not updating this value basically. Okay, so that's what, like, we have to see what is happening. So when here if I see info, so info log I have set. Now see, every 2 seconds value is getting updated, A value is getting updated, but it is not getting updated in here. So the reason behind this is so this variable we have defined, right, this is a normal variable, this is not a reactive in nature. So what do I mean by reactive is, so reactive variables are something that ensures the React element to re-render when it is being changed. But as it is not a reactive variable, it will not force the React to re-render this stuff, right? So that's why we have this something called state. So basically when you call a variable like a reactive, or make ensure that the component re-renders, so that is basically a state of that particular component. So to define states, we can just do this thing only in a separate way. So I'll just remove it, and I'll keep something like this dot state. So I am defining a state in here which is called a, which value is 2. Okay, so the thing is the syntax of state will always be like this dot state. Okay, and whenever there is any update that we require to do it, it cannot be possible like this dot a. We cannot directly do any kind of manipulations over this, because if we do it, then there is no guarantee that this will update in the UI. So in order to maintain the reactivity of that variable, what we need to do is we need to use a function that is called this dot set state. Okay, inside this dot set state, what we can do is this dot a state dot a plus 1. So every time it gets increased and it gets stated. Okay, so and this one, sorry, my mistake, the syntax is like inside that you need to pass an object, and object key is the value, object key is the state basically, and you have to specify the value. So object key is the state name, that is a in here, and the value is this dot state dot a plus 1. Okay, and here also we need to define this dot state dot a, this dot state dot a, in order to show the value in console. Okay, so what we did here, this things, and another thing is here also I have to update it. So this will be this dot state dot a. Okay, so let's just quickly go over it again. So first thing what we have done is we have introduced a special kind of data in component, that is the state. So I have to write like this dot state, and inside that one object will be there. Inside that object, whatever state I want to define, I am defining it. So right now I am defining just a, which is the value of a is 2, and then I have this method which is updating the value of that particular state every 2 seconds by 1. And inside that what I am doing is so I am calling this function called this dot set state. So inside set state, always the new value will be there, and the key of that particular state name will be there. So inside set state you will always pass a object. So in that object, the key will be the name of the state, and the value will be the value of the state that you need it to be. Okay, and it cannot be, though this dot state is a very is a data that is directly available in the class, and you can directly do any kind of manipulation to that, but it is not it is not advisable, or it is not done like that. Rather we use always this dot set state, as it goes through certain processes which ensures the reactivity as well as browser's capabilities intact. Okay, so now let's see. And also I have used in the JSX syntax also like this dot state dot a to access this value. Okay, so now just I'll just reload it and let's see what happens. See, as this is getting updated, this is also getting updated. So, and also if you see in the components library, so see, so this a is now defined as a state which is updating every 2 seconds. Okay, and as it is updating the UI as well. Now if you see the UI, so if you see the UI, see, only this part is getting updated every time, only this part. So as I have already told you, right, the virtual DOM is saying only this part is getting updated, means only it will change this part, it will not change the whole thing. Okay, so this is what a state is. Basically state is something that is the data for that particular component itself, and prop is something that is coming from other components and you cannot change that particular thing. But state is remaining created and remaining inside the same component, and you can update it and it will re-render the component itself. Okay, so that is what state is. The concept of state is very important in React.js because we will be using it throughout the application a lot of places. And state like this and this dot set state, these two things are available only to class components. These are not available to functional components. There is a different way to right now to do state management in functional component as well, but that is a different thing. We do it using hooks, not by using this dot state or set state. Okay, so whenever we are doing any kind of state operation right now, we will be referring to class components only. And let us just know like what state does. So as I have told, every time the state of an object changes, React re-renders the component to the browser. State object is initialized in the constructor. So we have initialized the state object inside constructor, and this dot set state is used to change the value of the state object, which we are doing in here. This dot set state. So to change or update the value of the state, and this function performs a shallow merge between the new and the previous state. So that means whatever the previous state is, that gets overridden by the new state. So that's why, like, say for example, here only one state I am updating, but here it can be another state as well. So what it will do is basically this one it will update, and this guy it will let it be there. It will not override that, or because you are this dot set stating with this object which doesn't have b, it will not remove it. Rather, it will also keep it as well as just update this value. Okay. And you can see the details about the set state method as well. Now we'll learn about the differences between states and props. So first thing is, state is used to store the data of the components which they have to be rendered in the view. Okay, so say for example, I have a component, inside that I need to change some data, or inside that I need to create some data. All those things that is to be done inside that component only. So that part is done using state. Okay, props is something to send data inside components from parent component or sibling component. So props is only used for sending data or passing data towards components, not like updating or anything. So props, but anyway, props, if prop gets updated in the parent component, the value of props, then it will get rendered, the re-render will happen in child component, but inside the child component you cannot update the prop. Okay, mutability, that means how much it can be updated or not. State holds the data and can change over time. So yes, so whenever you are defining a state variable, so that is bound to be changed. That's why you are defining it as a state variable. Like, you know that this particular variable or the data is going to get changed in time, so that I'm defining it in state, and so it can re-render my component. But props is not mutable basically, because props are sent through components to child components, and those child components cannot update the prop value. Okay, component state can only be used in class components, which is true. As I have told you, right, in class components only we will be using states, and in to manage similar kind of scenario in functional components, we have something else that is called hooks, but states we cannot use there. Okay, but in terms of props, right, in both class component and functional component we can use props. Okay, updation. So generally event handlers like click event or change event, or right now you have seen the set interval event, right, all those events update the state variables, but props are not updated inside the component. Rather, it is updated in the value of the prop is updated in the parent component. Okay, so that is what the difference between states and props. Now we'll learn about something very important in React components life cycle. Okay, so what is that? Basically, just like a human baby, or just like a human, right? So we have a state, right, life cycles. So what is the life cycle is like? First we are child, then or baby, or then we become adult, then we are grown-ups, then we are oldies. So similarly in React components also, they goes through similar life cycle. Okay, as you can see, three different parts of that life cycle is mentioned over here. So the first thing is mounting. So mounting means when the component comes to the browser basically. Okay, and so inside that you can see two particular methods are written. First thing is constructor, which I have already told you. So constructor is something that is called the first. Okay, then it comes component did mount. Okay, and component did mount is when the component is completely ready basically, and it came to the browser. It is completely ready in the browser and to be served. It is not yet rendered, that means it is not yet on the browser yet, but it will be rendered. Okay, then the second phase is updating. So whenever there is a new prop values coming, then we can have this method should component update or not. Then we have something called render method, which is shared across mounting and updating. So basically whenever the component is so the constructor is ready and it is basically trying to render it on the browser, then this render function is called. Similarly, it is also called when there is any change in props or states, so that's why it is shown in here set state. Okay, and whenever render function is called, it changes or updates the DOM and refs. Definitely it changes some of the elements that needs to be changed, and then it calls for a function called component did update. Okay, and there is something called unmounting. Unmounting means whenever a component is removed from the component hierarchy. Say for example, a component is removed when you transition from one page to another page, then all the components that are rendered in the previous page goes off. So that time this particular method being called actually. Okay, so we can see like in constructor. So I'll just give you a simple example which will help you understand. So we already have constructor over here, so I'm putting hello from constructor, and I'll keep another method that is component did mount. Okay, inside that I'll put like console.log hello from did mount. Okay, another function is there, component did. Okay, so component did update. Okay, and last one is component will unmount. Okay, so four things are there basically. Whenever there is any update that is coming, then component did update. I'll just paste it. So basically whenever there is any update, right, so before even update happens, this particular console happens in here. So whenever the state is being changed, then also it will happen, and will unmount will happen only when unmounting is happening. Okay, and what I'll do is instead of set interval, I'll put as set timeout, and I'll put it as 5 seconds. So after 5 seconds only, and I'll just put it as value updated. I'm just consoling one thing in here. I'll just console it here. Value is being updated. And also another important thing to let you know in here is the state change, right? This particular API, this is an asynchronous thing. So whenever you call it, it will not then and there do the things. So if you want to do something after this state has been changed, so there is something called a callback function that you can pass in here, and inside callback function you can basically do whatever you want after this is actually being set. So this one is not a synchronous operation, so that's why this callback method you can pass. So inside callback method, I'll put as console.log value updated successfully. Okay, so now let's see how it works basically. Okay, Okay, so I'll just go to this one and I'll go to console and I'll just reload it. Okay, so what is happening? See, hello from constructor, then value is being updated. Okay, this is actually rendering 2 times. So here, hello from constructor, value is being updated. Then again, this one did again. Wait. Yes. So after that, so again constructor is called and update happened. First update has happened, value is being updated. This method is called, because in the constructor only I'm calling this guy, right? So what we can do is we can call this guy from did mount. Okay, so if I call that, and now see, hello from constructor first happens. This is just from another file, it is showing the same thing. Hello from constructor, then hello from did mount. So component got mounted first, right? Component mounted, and after that update variable goes. So value is being updated. Okay, and wait, did I do something? Yes, value got updated, then it got unmounted and mounted again. Hello from did mount again, and value is updated, and value is being updated after that. So this particular thing is called, and when I'm updating this dot set state, then it calls this guy as well. Sorry, component did update, like whether there is any chance to update that component or not. Okay, so then it is updated, value updated successfully. Now to just go over everything again, so what is happening here is, so the first thing in any component, that is constructor, always constructor is called first. After that, component did mount is called. So whatever changes and all we need to do, we can call it from here. And as component did mount happens, that means all the codes, all the component is ready to be served in browser and to be rendered in browser. So then this so before this, render happens and this function is called basically. So constructor happens, after that render function happens, and things are shown in browser, and then component did mount is called. Then component if any changes in component happens, like prop change or state change, then component did update is called. And if the component is unmounting and mounting again, say for example any changes there, that means what, there will be unmounting, if the component will be removed, then again it will be mounted, right? So then this particular method will be called. Okay, so this is what the lifecycle methods are. Basically there are multiple lifecycle methods. So if you see, so constructor is there, as I have told. Then there is render function. So render function is basically just rendering the whole thing. Component did mount is there. So this method is called after the component is rendered for the first time, and it is only available after the component is mounted. Basically mounted means everything is ready. Okay, then we have something called inside updating status, right? We have something called get derived state from props. That means, so say for example we are getting props from a different component. Now we want to use them as states, like by changing them as we need, but directly props we cannot change, right? So that's why what we can do is we can have something like get derived state from props. So, and we can assign it to a state basically. So here even the props.favorite color is a prop, we are defining it as a state in favorite color, so that we can also change this guy. Okay, then another thing is there, should component update. So whenever there is any update coming, right? So I have showed you one thing, like this guy, right? Component did update. Component did update is called when there is any change in prop or state, already change is done, and component has re-rendered also, then this particular method is called. But there is another method which is called just before re-rendering the component. So if there is any change in props or if there is any change in states, then before even changing the changing those data or re-rendering the component, this particular method is called, which is should component update. So this, inside this component you can take decisions whether you want to update the component or not. And after that method only component did update method is called, when actually the component got updated. And then there is another state that is called unmounting. This is only able to use, we are only able to use when the component is completely getting destroyed from the DOM tree. So it can perform some kind of cleanups or garbage collections or removing event listeners, etc, etc. Like if we have added some kind of interval, set interval, then we can clear that interval inside that, so that the browser for that application doesn't get hanged or laggy. Okay, so that is what we do. So this is what the lifecycle methods are in React.js. Okay, and we'll be using these life cycles a lot in our next sessions, but right now you can just read it through. Okay, now we'll learn about handling events with React. Okay, so handling events means, event means the browser or the client side applications are always running on events basically. So events means click event, change event, form submit event, or there can be an event of scrolling or hovering over something. All those things are events. So any kind of user interaction with your application is an event, and how to handle that is what we are going to learn. Okay, so normally in our normal HTML applications, right? So the way we write event is totally in lowercase, but in React we write those in by using camel case. Okay, in JSX. So I'll just give you an example how we can use a React this thing events. So to do that, I'll just create a simple component, that is a class component. So say for example, I'll put the name as counter. Okay, counter.js. Inside that I'll just define import React from React. So I have imported the React package from React. Then class counter extends. So I'm writing a class component because I require, so as I'm going to handle form events or events basically, so then I require some states also in order to show that in the browser. So to do that I am creating a class component. So class counter extends React dot component, and inside that I am defining the class. So I'll just create a constructor over here, and inside the constructor I'll just put as the super, so that I can use this keyword, and then I'll create a state. Okay, state will be simple, one count will be there, which will be at first 0. Okay, so very simple thing I have written. So I have created a counter component which is extending the React component and creating a class component in here, and inside that, in the constructor part, I have first defined super so that I can use this keyword, and inside the component I have defined a state. Inside that state I have only one state value, which is count. Okay, now I'll go to render part. So in the render part, what we have is, I'll just return a JSX. Okay, so which is div class count component, and inside that what I'll do is, I'll basically add this simple thing which is paragraph one paragraph will be there. Inside that I'll just show count equal to this dot state dot count. Okay, I'll just show the count, as well as I'll have two buttons. So button 1 will be increase, and the second button will be decrease. So as the name suggests, what I'm trying to do in here is, on click of the increase button, this value should update and increase, and on click of this button, the value should decrease. That's all. Okay, I'll just export it, export default, and that's all. Now I can just import that particular thing inside index.js and I'll show it. So what I'll do is import counter, and I'll just show it inside this. Okay, so now let's see. So this is coming like this. So I'll just give some styling also to this particular component so that you can also understand like how to give the styling and all. So what I can do is basically I can just create a new file over here, which is counter.css. Okay. Inside counter.css, what I can do is I have already specified the class name as count component, right? So I'll just name it as count. Okay, count component, let it be count component. I'll just copy that class name and I'll just put it like this, and I'll add some things like margin 20 pixel, padding 20 pixel, border 1 pixel solid, and as well as the button should have, this thing is there, and as well as the button should have some amount of space in between, right? So what I'll do is count button margin 16 pixel. So that's all, it will have some margins. Also the text should be a bit bigger. So what I can do is so I'll just so p tag is there, I'll just directly do this. Font size is equal to 24 pixel. So I have just done simple things, and now I'll just import it inside this particular component. Import okay. So as I have imported it, the CSS part, then it is shown in here. So the border, margin and the padding is happened, and font size and these things has happened. Now as I click on this, right, nothing happens basically. So as I click on this, nothing happens right now. So that's what we need to do. That's what our objective is right now. So to handle these events, this click events. Okay, so what I'll do is first thing is to handle any event in JavaScript, in React.js, we need to, as I've told, we need to specify the event name in here with on. Okay, so say for example this increase is there, I'll write like on click. So and so whatever is there in the normal JavaScript, right? So this on click will be in normal JavaScript also, but C won't be the capital. But here, as I have told, all the things are mostly camel case, so that's why on click will happen like that. And in the on click we have to specify a method basically. Okay, okay, in the on click we need to specify a method. So on click of that, this particular method will be running. Okay, so this method, what we can do is we can call another method inside here, which is increase counter. Okay, inside which what we'll do is we'll just this dot set state and inside it we'll just increase the state value. This dot count equal to this dot count plus 1. So as simple as that. So what it is doing is increase counter, on calling this, it will just increase the count value always. Now we'll have that, and I'll just call this particular guy from here always. So that's all. So we have the increase event handler here. So these things are added. Okay, so we have the on click event handler, inside which this is the event handler function basically. Okay, now we'll see just. So I have reloaded, and if I click on this, say it is not doing right now. It is doing something, some wrong things it is doing. So nan is happening. We need to see what is happening that is wrong. So as you can see, I have done wrong this thing here. So this dot count doesn't exist here, rather this dot state dot count. Okay, because we have defined it in the state only, right? So that is available through state, this dot state dot count. So if I go here and if I click on increase, so it is increasing. Similarly, if I decrease, it is not decreasing. So we need to write the decrease method as well. So similarly, just like the increase button, what I'll do is we'll just copy this guy, or let me just write it again, decrease counter, which will just do a this dot set state, inside which we'll just set the state for count, which will be this dot state dot count -1. So it will just decrease by 1 every time it is being clicked. So we have defined the event handler method, and now we just have to specify it over here on click, right? We have to just specify. Okay, so this is what we have specified, this dot decrease counter, that is decrease. Okay, if I go here, so it is decreasing and increasing as we click on it. So this is how we handle events in React.js. To sum it up again, see what we have done is we have created a state in the component which is count, and the value we have initialized it with is 0, and then we have two methods to handle the states basically. That means whenever the event is triggered, then to handle or update the states we needed two methods. One is increase counter, another one is decrease counter. It is always good and advisable that you create single methods for each handling of the events. Okay, so here also we have created like that. For increasing we have created increase counter, for decreasing we have created decrease counter, and inside the increase counter what we are doing is we are just updating the state count with increasing the value of it by 1. Okay, and similarly we are updating the count value by decreasing it by 1 inside decrease counter, and both of these methods are ready, means we can use it in here by specifying it on click. So we can do it on click. When click happens, then you do this particular method, then you call this particular method and update it. And as the count is state, whenever any update happens to that, it re-renders this particular bit. So that's all. So this is how we can handle any kind of events in React. So right now I have talked about only click event, but I suggest you to read about change event, mouse over event, and form submit event. Okay, so as you can see, I have written a lot of details here. Okay, so this was it basically. This was it for event handling part. Now you can try with different event handling as I have told, and your assignment will be a very simple page where there will be a text area where user writes their introduction bio in mixed case. Okay, and there will be a button on click of which the bio will change to uppercase. So basically there will be a simple text area or input. There someone will write some stuff, and on click of that on click of a button there will be, right, like change the button's label will be like convert to uppercase. So on click of that button you can take the text area value of the text area and show it on a paragraph below that text area with everything being uppercase. Okay, so this is very simple one, and you will be able to do it by using today's event handling techniques only. Okay, so you can be able to do it by using state and event handling methods. So I'll just show you how to handle event with an input as well, so that it will be easy for you. So just like this button event, right? So say for example we have some input also in here. Okay, so say for example this count, right now we are showing it in a paragraph, right? Just what we can keep it in an input as well. Input type number. Okay, and value being this dot state dot count. Okay, so what we are doing here is we are showing the p tag as well as input in here, and in input what we are doing is we are keeping the value of the input always tagged with the state. So this is one way binding. So whenever there is any change, okay, whenever there is any change to this state, that value will get updated in here basically. Okay, so let's see what is showing in here. Okay, so it is here, and if I increase, input is also increasing, decrease means input is also decreasing. So say for example I want to do some changes, like I am clicking but this change is not happening. If I click on this also, no change is happening, because right now as I have made this value as this state value, right? So it has been one way binded, so only from JavaScript only it can be updated, the value can be updated. Now in order to open that, right, open that limitation, what you need to do is whenever any change happens we need to handle that change ourselves. So what we have to do here is we have to use another event which is on change. So whenever on change any change happens to that input, what we need to do is basically we need to call a function over here, so which is, I'll call it as change input value. Okay, inside that what I'll do is whatever value is coming I'll just update it like this dot set state count equal to value. So what I am going to do is whenever any change event happens there will be always a event. Okay, so the event value will always come, and the next value, like after changing whatever value it is going to be, right, even though it is not getting changed in state, but the value that I am typing or someone is updating, that value is coming here. We just need to update it in the state, that's all. So how to access that value is just by using event.target.value. Okay, so what we can do is, say for example here I'll just, for now I'll do a console.log event.target.value. Okay, so what I'm doing is I have an input which is tightly coupled with one way binded with the state count, and there is a on change event that I have written, inside which I'm just consoling the event's next value basically, which is not getting updated in the state obviously, but the value I am posting. So increasing, I have increased to 3, and now I just click on this. So see, even though it is not getting updated here, it is trying to make that value as 4. Now again I am trying, so it is trying to make that value as 4 just to increase by 1 bit, or if I try to decrease it, it is trying to make it as 2, but it is not happening. So to make it happen, we have the value over here, we just have to update this value into the set state. So what we can do is we will just call this function change input value function and pass this particular value, this dot change input value, and inside that event dot target dot value. Okay, so inside change input value this value will be passed and this value will be updated in the count state. Okay, so that means that becomes the updated value becomes the in the state. So I'll just save it, and now if I go, now say for example I'm increasing it, now I make it like 60 or 600, then I decrease it, then I decrease from here, or I make it some more, then also it is getting updated. So now you understand, right, how we can update or track input events as well. So to do that we need to use the onChange event, and in onChange event what we can do is we can take the value that is going to be, and that value we need to update in the state, and we need to bind the input by using state. So that we can do by using value equal to state value. Okay, so this is how we can basically bind an input value with a state, and onChange event we have to ensure that that value gets updated in the state value, so that it is getting also updated in this input as well. Okay, so this is how we can handle a input field in React.js. Okay, so we have learned about button click events and change events. So now I think there is no issue to create this assignment. It is very easy now. So you need to create a very simple text area where people will write their introduction or bio in mixed case. So capital or small case, anything can be there. Now there will be a button on click of which that whole text will change into capital uppercase, and it will be showing into a paragraph below the text area. That's all. It will be a very simple assignment. Okay, now to just give a like before wrapping up, we'll just give a brief overview about what we have learned today. So first thing is what we have learned is what is state in React.js. State is a built-in React object by which we can define reactive variables in React. So what that means is those variables are something that on change of those, React basically re-renders the components where it is being used, where those variables are being used. So that's why state variables are very much needed when we need any kind of front-end value changes or mutations or updations. Okay, and so state value is defined always in the constructor first, initialized in the constructor first by using this dot state equal to the states that we require. Okay, and going forward, whenever there is any change is required, then it should be changed by using this dot set state method, inside which you need to pass an object with the states you want to change and their values. That's all. Then another thing is, this set state is not a synchronous thing. It will happen in asynchronous. That's why if you want to do something after this state has changed totally, so you can pass a callback over here and you can use that. Okay, then we have learned about state and props difference, right? So state and props difference is, first thing is, state is used to store data inside a component or update or re-render the component. Prop is just for sending data from one component to another component. Second thing is, in the case of mutability also, these two things are very different, where a state can be changed at any point of time and it will ensure re-rendering. That means reactivity only, but props cannot be changed from a child component where it is being passed. Okay. Third thing is component. State can only be used in class components, but props will be used in any kind of components, be it functional or class. Fourth thing is updation. So basically event handlers like here on change or on click that we have used, right? Those things only update the states whenever it is required. But in case of props, it is updated from the parent, and there is no particular scenario where it updates. It can be updated at any time. Now then we have learned about React components lifecycle. So the stages a component goes through. So three stages are there: mounting, updating, and unmounting. Inside these three stages, there are different life cycle methods. So the first thing that happens is constructor. So whenever a component first comes into life, so it first runs the constructor method, and after that it runs render method. Then all the elements and all are being rendered on the browser, and component did mount is called. Okay, and after that again updating stage is there. Inside that updating stage there are multiple methods, but the most important ones is should component update. Then, like, if there is any change in state or props, then it is this method is called. So where you can basically either stop that update or basically go with that update. And then render again called, because it is being updated, so re-render will happen. And then component did update will be called, like component has successfully updated. And then in the end there is something called unmounting. So whenever the component is getting destroyed, that time unmounting component will unmount will be called, and we can do some kind of clearance or data garbage collection, all those stuff in this method. I have added all the necessary React lifecycle methods in here. You can go through this, and please read and practice these lifecycle methods, as they are very important for any kind of interviews. Okay. Now the thing is handling events with React. What we have done is we have taken a button, and as we have told, like normal HTML, the events are tracked by using a simple lowercase this thing, but in React everything is camel casing. So on click like this it will be happen, where C is capital. Okay, so the way we are handling the clicks is like this: on click. So we are passing a method, we are basically calling a method in here in which we are updating the value. One question will arise here: why we are not directly updating the value here? That is because it is forbidden to do any kind of state change operation inside render function. You should always do that using a method which is outside the render function. So inside render function you should never do any kind of state changes. Okay, now we handled the button click event by doing this, and we have also handled input change event by doing this. Like on change, what we'll do is we'll update a state, and we'll use the state as a value, so that what happens is you will always have the value for that input, whatever the user enters with this particular state. So that's all basically. That's all we have learned today, and we have the assignment as I have already elaborated to you. I hope things are a bit clear, and in the next sessions we'll learn more about the events and hooks and all those stuff. Thank you.